Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're here live with Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we are excited that you are here with us today. It's another Wellness Wednesday, and we are, really being intentional about how we are presenting material to our business owners, our executives, people who are high-performing entrepreneurs, but also to people who are coming up in the ranks. And we believe that the knowledge that we, want you to get has so much more to do with who you're becoming rather than who you already are. So you'll sometimes have to stretch to use some of this information, even when you've been in business a longer time. And I will tell you that for me, it has always been that I am arriving and that I've never been able to just quite arrive. And that's not a negative thing. It just means that I always have something else to learn. And I wanted to make sure that you all understood that you always have something else to learn. You are never in a position where you've learned everything. Your business is always growing. There's always going to be new clients or new customers to get. And so, when we are thinking about how we are educating ourselves to provide information that is, very relevant, we have to be thinking about how we're going to manage, our own thought process. How do we get to a place of where we are understanding everything that is being made available to us, and what about those things are going to be the most important things for us to work on now. Some things are priority number one. We just have to be able to see that if we're getting information, we have to be able to pick through what we have available to us and know that there are some parts of it that we have to do, something with right now. And I'll give you an example of that, as we are, working through today. But I need you to understand that priority number one in this season of my life is me, working on me, getting me better professionally and personally, so that I can be what I need to be able to serve my community better, to serve my clients, to serve my employees and contractors, to work, in ways that will cause them to also stretch and become better at what they do. And so in that realm, we have to talk about how we see ourselves. What is our identity per se? And so today's episode, we're going to talk about overcoming the imposter syndrome, confidence strategies for executives. And I'd love for you to be able to pull up the slides, Javon, so that everyone could see. And so that we'll be able to, properly share this information today, and you get all of the relevant information that is been prepared. When we're talking about overcoming the imposter syndrome, this kind of topic is one that is a little challenging for some people because they don't necessarily want to admit that they might be having a challenge grappling with this particular syndrome. And we're going to look at some strategies. How do we build our self-confidence and how do we embrace our accomplishments? Some people are, really good at, talking about the accomplishments of others and congratulating others, celebrating others, but they don't do well at celebrating themselves. I know of people who actually have a real difficult time receiving compliments and even, evaluating or assessing how well they did in a particular situation. So, we want you to have the knowledge, but you've got to be able to understand what imposter syndrome is first. So the first thing I need to make sure you understand is that people that have this imposter syndrome or they're challenged by the concept of, how well they do or if they're able to really do what they're supposed to be doing, they face self-doubt. Many times I've seen people talk about feeling like a fraud, and I have in I mean, and I know you probably are saying, gosh, you have so many certificates and degrees and all of those different types of things. You don't face self-doubt. But I have been in a situation where I felt like a fraud, despite the accomplishments that I had, and despite all of those certificates that are up on my wall. You can't see them right now, but they're there. And despite that, I have felt like, from time to time that I was in a position where I had not necessarily accomplished things in a way that were what I should have been able to accomplish, in order for me to be doing what it was that I was doing. And so I've had to really work through that process, of seeing myself from a different set of eyes. My clients never have expressed that they saw me in that way. My husband, my kids, nobody has ever expressed that. It has all been based on my own thought process, my own view of myself, my own evaluations and assessments of the things that I've done or not done. And I am saying to you that if that's something you're experiencing, this is called imposter syndrome. Another part of it is fear of exposure. Once you don't feel like you are equipped or that you have everything that you need to have to be doing what you're doing, okay, or for that matter, that you have enough experience, even though you might have the paperwork, you might have the degrees, you might have the certificates, you might even have, the accolades, but for whatever reason, some part is missing and inside of you, and because of that you might have fear of exposure and you dread being found out as incompetent, or and this thing leads to anxiety and avoidance in your life. It causes you to sometimes procrastinate on tasks because you're like, okay, am I really doing this right? Or how come it feels like I'm never able to get my mind around this concept of what it is that I'm doing. And no matter when you are really in this place of imposter syndrome, no matter how many people tell you what a good job you did, how many certificates and plaques and accolades you might have, this fear of exposure seems to crop up, and it crops up sometimes at the most inopportune times. It just will cause you to be off your game, and not really be in a position where you are able to be your best version of yourself, when it's needed. Okay. And so I've also seen people who struggle with this attribute their success to luck or chance. It's the minimizing their own contributions, disregarding their input, discounting their skill set, dismissing their accomplishments as just a chance happening. Yes, sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm off kind of thing. And so, this is really a real challenge for people who are in this situation. And so it's something when you are able to be honest enough with yourself to see yourself walking through this and understand what to do about it. Okay. So let's kind of look at what impact it has on your leadership. And then we're going to talk about how you can overcome it, what it is that you can do. So the impact of imposter syndrome on your leadership is that you are hesitant to take risks. And I am one who, have really in my life become a risk taker, but I use information. Okay. I'm not just out there, living, as one of my kids say, living foul, where I'm just doing stuff, and taking risks without any information, or education, using any progress, meters. I do really look at, the concept of, what it is that I want to do and work towards. Sorry? Your slides are not showing. Okay, let's see what's happening. The slides are not showing. Thank you so much for that. Okay, hold on just a second. We'll fix it. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So I want to make sure that everybody can see that. Somebody give me a thumbs up and let me know. Okay. Yep, we can see it. Awesome. Awesome sauce. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have a good production team because I'm way down the road here and my slides were not kept showing up, and so that's a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we have solved the problem. Okay, so I'm going to go back because I do want you to be able to make sure you see the beautiful graphics, okay, that go along with this. Okay, so as we started overcoming the imposter syndrome, and the confidence strategies that we're going over right now are the confidence strategies that should help you have the tools to be able to not have this be a thing for you. We see this guy, he's looking at himself in the mirror, and one side looks one way and the other side, of course, in the mirror, in other words, what he's seeing himself a different way than he presents to others. And that is also a real big issue with imposter syndrome. And so we talked about the self-doubt, the fear of exposure, and attributing success to luck. And now we're really looking at the impact of imposter syndrome on your leadership. So you are really hesitant to take risks when you have this as an issue. And the fear of failure does really stop you from iterating on your services, your products. You kind of get to a certain point and you're like, well, this is working, so I don't really want to move to the next concept, because I'm just not sure that I'll be able to pull it off. I've seen people have that as an issue. It does hinder your ability to innovate, and that stops you from being competitive in the marketplace. And, and you sometimes don't even use strategic decision making because you don't trust yourself, and so, this is a real issue when you are, a high performing leader. You perform well and you're not able to have the view of yourself, the view of your products and services that you really need to see. It's skewed. You have on a set of glasses that are a whole lot darker than they need to be. Okay. You're sometimes in a position where you are coloring your view, as you go. And you're not able to really view things, in truth and in authenticity. And so what we want to really look at is when you have imposter syndrome, even if you're struggling with it, it may not be the way you see life always, but it crops up here and there. It limits your growth. Self-doubt really does prevent you from, seeking out the opportunities. Things will show up and you will purposefully turn in your paperwork late, or you are staying up all night the day before, not because you work best with deadlines, but because of the fact you're scared. You are fearful that you're not going to be able to do it. And, I've seen people do this with grant opportunities. I've seen them do it with opportunities for promotions. I've seen people do this, with opportunities to expand their company, how they are just so rattled inside about how they view themselves that they will not even allow their company to excel. Then it also strains relationships because when you're insecure, that insecurity has a frequency, and people around you can feel it. They can sense that there's something off. And it leads to, people not necessarily choosing you sometimes, to do business or to coach with or to even, buy your services or products, because of the fact that you're in there, selling or, attempting to negotiate, and you just seem so unsure. And so it also can impact your team because it can really lead to there being kind of a disruptive type of scenario. The communication is off. You're just not as cohesive. You don't work as well together because the leader is really not sure. They are just not confident. in everything that they need to be, or everything they need to have, or whatever it is that they need to do, and so I need to make sure that, as I'm sharing this, that you guys are really clear that this is not something that you want to have as a part of your company long haul. You've got to be able to understand how to get past this part, what it is that you can do to position yourself differently. This is a part of our mindset management. We have to be able to understand how we grow, and growing is going to include getting past seeing ourselves from a different perspective than we should. When you can tackle imposter syndrome, you can boost the self-confidence, and you are able to lead with authenticity and conviction. And that's very, very important. If you don't believe it can happen, trust me on this, your team will not believe it can happen. And your customers and clients over time, as they get to know your company, they won't be able to trust that it can happen either, because they see that you're unsure. So how do you recognize self-doubt and insecurity? Well, one of the things that we can do is, we can see when we are beginning to have self-talk that is negative. And I know Coach Kevin is on the line today, and I'm sure that, he can identify with this, because he teaches it as well, being able to see things from the perspective that we really need to see things from, and when we're saying something different than what we need to be saying, it is very, very overwhelming, to ourselves, okay, to be able to do something different, and operate in a positive light when everything we see is overly critical. That inner voice is talking to us very loudly, and it's focusing on all of our flaws, all of the shortcomings, what we don't have, why we can't do it, all of those cognitive biases that, exist, and cause us to get into a place of where we're not able to proceed, in excellence. So perfectionism is another self-doubt, characteristic, and having these unrealistic expectations of ourselves, leading to constant self-criticism. I was, in a conversation here recently where I was sharing, with someone who they believed that what they were doing was the right thing, and that they were supposed to be moving forward in it and with power and vigor, but they didn't believe that, so at some point they didn't believe that every part of it was, something that they were supposed to be dealing with. And so they were trying to break it down to see if they had made a misstep. They really didn't want to disappoint. They had all of this stuff that they were going through. And I call it emotional gymnastics, mental gymnastics, trying to make sure that everything was right. And I will tell you that when you have unrealistic expectations for yourself, then the self-criticism will start, and you can break apart every plan that you have, because you will not be able to see yourself winning in it. You will not be able to see yourself as a person who could possibly complete the task. So we always will, I won't say always, but we often will, when we're in that mindset, compare ourselves to others, measuring our self-worth, against the perception of success of others. I'm looking at someone and I see that they have made certain accomplishments, and they are ambitious in things that they do. And when I start comparing myself to them, I should be further along than I am in my company, or I should be further along than I am in life, and it fuels the insecurities. And this is a very hard thing to break if you, are in a position where you don't see it, but if you are seeing it, and that this is what's happening, there are some things that can be done about it. And so here are some of our strategies for building your self-confidence. And so the first thing is, you got to challenge the negative thoughts. When those thoughts come up, you have to identify them And Coach Kevin, you see me using some of your stuff. Reframe the negative self-talk. You have to be able to, turn that around. And let me give you an example, because I don't want to leave you in the lurch with, okay, what does that mean? And not having you with an example. Okay. So if a negative thought comes up, where you are beginning to do something new, you just, maybe gotten a new certification, or you've finished your degree program, or you have stepped into a new area, a new niche in your business. Okay. And what comes to mind is that, I'm too new in this. I'm too inexperienced. I'm too, you know, I'm too under the gun. I'm too nervous. I'm too all of these things, and so you're talking to yourself inside. You're hearing yourself say all of the reasons why you cannot move forward in this brand new, brave new world, this new experience in business that you have an opportunity for. And you have to be able to take the too new, too inexperienced, too what, and reframe that thing and turn it back around and say, I have lots of opportunities for growth. There are, this is a great learning experience for me. I am able to get good feedback from these first few clients, so that I'll be able to have information, business intelligence that will allow me to move forward, in a very powerful and positive way. This is a whole new landscape. I've never been unsuccessful in this before, because a lot of people, they'll look at it and say, well, I've never been successful in this before. I look at it as I've never been unsuccessful in this before. So I have lots of opportunities to really move forward and help people in a great way. Challenging the negative thoughts is, probably the most important part of building your self-confidence, because if you can think a thing, okay, then you can do a thing. If you can get past all of the objections that are inside of yourself, the barriers that you have created, the prison of your own mind, you can get past that, then now a brand new world is available to you, and you can just focus on your strengths, acknowledge your skills and accomplishments, things that you may have done in a whole different arena. You can bring that into the thing that you're doing now by talking about the areas where you have been successful, celebrating your small wins, the things that, you have been able to do. No, I've never done it in a practice, my own practice, but I've done this in school. I've had many, what we call trial runs at this, and I was successful at each one of them, or I was successful at most of them, or I was successful at one of them, whichever works for you to help you look at what you have accomplished so far and acknowledge your skill set. If you know that you're proficient in an area, celebrate that. I've had somebody ask me, why do you put all your certificates up on the wall? It's great that, you did all this, but when people come in, that can be a little intimidating when they're in your office looking at all these things that you've done. And I had to really tell them, this is not for my clients. This is for me. Like, what? I'm like, no, this is a confidence booster. Some days I really need the encouragement, and I have to encourage myself. And most of the time I'm working in my office alone. I'm on Zoom, so nobody can really see what's up on my walls. But, having the words, from the accomplishments surround me, helps me to raise my own frequency up, to say, you know what, you've done it before, you can do it again. No, this may not be, something that you've done exactly this way before, but you've done something, and doing something gives you an accomplishment, gives you a way of seeing yourself and knowing that, okay, this is something that is recognized. This is something I am an authority in. This is something that I have studied to make it so that I am approved, okay, in this area. And so these are things that really do help us to build our confidence and to get past that imposter syndrome. And then, of course, seeking feedback feedback, talking to, others who are objective in your life, and getting their perspective, of what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it, and being open to the feedback. Sometimes the feedback may not be positive is in your eyesight, in your view. You might not be able to, or from your viewpoint, your standing, where you sit, you might not see some of the feedback as positive, or for that matter, as something that you even want to hear. But understanding that the feedback is extremely important, because it gives you the ability to see what you're doing from a perspective that is not yours, okay? And that may be a trusted source. And so it gives you truth, and you can look at what you need to correct or course correct. You can look at how you can, add things to it to make it more substantial or more rigorous. If you're trying to create, something like a curriculum or some type of a coaching program, or for that matter, you're trying to create a product that is, more, that serves people better and that is more appealing. It has, curb appeal. It's something that people will, take, and utilize. I remember, just recently I talked about when I was in Sao Paulo at the book festival, and I had my first book that I was releasing in Portuguese at the book festival. And I just remember the feeling of having my book sit on that table, knowing I could not speak a lick of Portuguese. I'm at this conference, or not really a conference, but it was a festival, and, which is more like a trade show for books. Okay. And so a book fair, we might call it here in America. But people were passing by, and I saw how they were picking up the books and looking at the titles and looking at the covers. And then they would talk to the authors about the book, the authors that were there, or the people who were behind the tables. And I was so grateful to have a beautiful translator. She was just amazing, amazing. And she was there to help me with, the words that I didn't know, that they were asking, the questions that they were asking. And I would tell her my answer, and she would, translate the answer so that people could understand. And so in the first hour, it wasn't very many of my books that were, flying off the shelf, because I couldn't figure out how to communicate. And that part made me feel like I wasn't ready. I wasn't, this wasn't something that I should be even trying to do. How can I bring a concept that I was challenged with how to even represent it in America to people, all the way to Brazil, and provide it to people who I didn't speak their language, and I didn't understand their plight fully. I mean, I had done a lot of research, but I did not have a handle on everything about the culture. And so I felt like, I was a pseudo author. And even though we had gone did all the work, there were people who were on my team that were amazing, who did speak the language, who understood the parts of my book that didn't apply to people in, Brazil, much less people in Sao Paulo. And they, helped me and, presented my material in a way that was more culturally competent. It was more acceptable. And I still felt those feelings that, had me, almost paralyzed to be able to try to, reach out to people and have them come to the table and, attempt to talk to them, even though I had a great person helping me with the translation. But when I actually took the time to seek the feedback from people who had read the book, people who had picked up the book and looked at it and read pieces of it, I began to get more and more confident, because their perspective outweighed my own. My perspective was skewed based on things that really were not even real after we got, past a certain point. It was all based on my feelings and my level of comfort in the situation, because I didn't speak the language and I didn't, feel like I could communicate, even though I did have a translator. after I talked to several people and began to really get in there and start pulling people to the table and attempting to communicate with them and having, I was reaching out. My books began to fly off the table. And every time we'd look up 10, we put 10 on the table and they were gone. And so then we pulled some more and they were gone. And the second day I did much better. And because I was able to, fill up my confidence meter, because of the challenging of the negative thoughts and the focusing on my accomplishments that I had before. I was a writer. It wasn't that I wasn't a writer, and it wasn't that I had never written before. It was just, this was a new arena for me, a new language, a new culture, and I had to get the feedback so that I could build my confidence the way that I needed to. So let's take a look at, what it means to embrace your accomplishments. Well, celebrate your successes. Acknowledge and reward your achievements, both big and small. You have to do this for you. Yes, you want other people to celebrate it. And it's great to hear people tell you how, wonderful you've done and, to, even, give you their feedback, but you got to get to the place of where you celebrate that. Because if you do not, you're going to be in a position where people are telling you things and you are not believing them. Okay. And now the celebration of the success is rote. It's not something that's real and authentic. And so I want you to be genuine about this, to celebrate your success. Okay. And when you're able to do that, it really does also contribute to your ability to build that confidence meter and to get it up so that you can erase the concept of imposter syndrome from your life. Okay. And then keeping a success journal is something that's a real good practice. When you can have a journal where you're documenting, your ambitious attempts to do something, when you actually have accomplished it, you got an outcome and you have those outcome indicators and you're able to have these little small things that show, okay, I'm on the road to accomplishment and this is what I've done and this has been successful. Document the wins, to have this tangible record, and it helps you to also go back and remember, what we talked about earlier is looking at your other successes and your other accomplishments. When you've got that success journal, you can go back and use all of that material to help get rid of the concept of feeling like a fraud or feeling like you are not deserving or that you cannot accomplish what it is that you have studied and worked so hard to be able to accomplish. All right. And then, of course, sharing your achievements. Talk about your successes with others. Let them know when you've made a gain, you've made a step, it might even be to you a small step, but it's a step nonetheless. I'm a part of a business mastery group, and we're all, in this group, riding alongside each other for a year, in our businesses. And I tell you, it is so wonderful to be able to put a very small win in there and have everybody congratulate you, put the memes in there, and that's just a wonderful thing. I know that it helps me when I'm able to celebrate others, their things that they're doing and their accomplishments that they're making. And it's just a different process when you have someone there as a cheerleader riding alongside of you, as you are stepping out in areas that are sometimes very scary, or that are places where you've never been before. It reinforces your sense of accomplishment when you have others there to support you. And so when you share your achievements in the right audience, or with the right audience, you are able to really gain access to what it is that, you need, to help you get out of that imposter area. You might have been someone who has great accomplishments in one area of your, business, or for that matter, in your professional life, if we can talk about it that way. And when you step into something new, you're at the same level as everybody else who's starting over. Even though you might have some, of the accomplishments and you might be at the top of your game, when you start a new game, guess what? You're at the bottom. So you need these abilities, to celebrate your successes and keep in the success journal so you can go back and see where you were when you started the previous level of attainment, and how you felt, and understanding what it felt like what it felt like when you got to that next level. You need those emotions and all of the frequency of the experience, to help you with the next level. So when you share your accomplishment, I would go back and write that down in my success journal. Hey, so and so, congratulated me today, on my accomplishment in this particular area. It really does feel, like sometimes you are not able to do this, and because of the fact that maybe you've had mistakes in the past, or it may have you not been a self starter. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering, but you're not a self-starter in a lot of other areas. And so this sometimes can, try to give you a setback, but you've got to remember, that you have to shift your perspective. And I will even tell you, you've got to replace your perspective, because when you're able to do that, it keeps you focused on your growth. You can see challenges as opportunities for learning and development. It helps you embrace imperfections. There's some things that are never going to be perfect, and it's okay. Accept the mistakes as a part of the process. Accept the failure as feedback. Okay. You guys know, who've been watching me for a while, how I feel about the word fail. I feel that it's failure that sometimes causes the greatest accomplishments. So when we're looking at, failure as feedback, when we're looking at the, being accountable, for the process, okay, that we're going through, and being accountable for what it is that didn't work, so that we can understand that there's something that's going to work, but that just didn't. And when we're able to, really, really have the mindset where we can look at the impression that failure had on us, the impression that it had on others, so that we can get a very well-rounded view of what has happened. Now we have leverage. Right? We have leverage, and so that's my acronym for fail, but when you have that leverage, you can use the imperfection, to do the next thing, and stay away from stuff that is not necessarily, going to produce results, or the type of results that you want. And then being able to practice gratitude, when you can recognize and appreciate your strengths, your skills, your accomplishments, and being thankful every moment, okay, for what it is that you've been able to experience, and what this lesson has brought to you, what this life lesson has done for you, it changes how you perform overall. And so our takeaways today is that, we want to be able to turn our challenges into opportunities. That's our part. That's something that we have to do. We've got to be able to learn from the mistakes, view the challenges as opportunities for growth and improvement, and seeing it that way, and solidifying that you see it that way helps you to not be so hard on yourself, when you have made a mistake, or when something has happened that you weren't expecting. It's an outcome that, was different. It produced something different than what you had accounted for, as you were doing your planning. But you still need to be able to see it as an opportunity to grow and to do something different the next time. And then set realistic goals. A lot of us are very unrealistic. I have been very guilty of this. There have been times in my life where I tried to do 50 hours worth of stuff in 4. Okay. And then I was so disappointed when I didn't get it all done, and frustrated, and, all of that. And I'm just saying, you got to break down your large challenges into manageable steps, actionable steps. It is not actionable for you to be able to try to accomplish 30 days worth of things in 10 days, when you don't have the necessary amount of help to do it, and so not saying that you can't accomplish it. You may not be able to accomplish it alone. So when you set the goal with things like that in mind. Make them smart goals. We've talked about those smart goals over and over and over again. Make it something that you can measure. So when you don't accomplish it, you can, or when you don't get all the way there, you can see what percentage of it you were able to do in the amount of time that you attempted. And you can back into, okay, next time I need to give myself more time, more lead time, whatever that is, but you got to keep good records in order for you to be able to understand what didn't work, why it didn't work, and, how do I make this a realistic goal the next time? And then lastly, seek support. Surround yourself with positive and supportive individuals. Create a team, a community around what you're doing. Even if those are people who are not necessarily your peers, they may be your contractors. They may be people that are, able to be in a focus group to help you kind of unwind the process and look at how things can be done differently, or how you can actually plan differently the next time. Well, I am just so excited that those of you who have joined us have been here today. We are, really trying to bring you the best possible business co-working sessions that we can. And, feel free to chat and let us know when you have something that you would like us to talk about, because we are open to, having your ideas in future episodes. This is not just a session that's designed for me to teach you. This is a session that's designed for you to be, hands-on, utilizing the material as we're doing it, giving us the feedback. And, sometimes we even invite you in the room. So be prepared, to participate in co-working, because co-working is not a part of a teaching platform that's only one-sided. It is, okay, now you have this, go use it, tell me how it worked, give us the feedback, and talk to us about the next part, okay? How do we need to move to the next level? And we really want that to be a part. Real soon, we're going to be having some, wonderful guests available in our co-working session again. We hope to have Coach Crystal back soon, and Coach Kevin within the next couple of weeks. And so we are excited about you bringing yourself to the table and saying, okay, I'm here to work on me. I'm here to work on my business, and how do we do that? And with that said, we're going to just be out of here today, but we will see you again next time.